Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of WFA's Better Marketing Podcast, brought to us by Meta, and thanks for their help as always. This time we focus on this year's Global Marketer of the Year, Cheryl Goh from Grab. Third time of asking, she's become the Global Marketer of the Year. No wonder, because she's done it by focusing on product, customer delivery, and business growth. And she did that when she was handpicked, not from the world of marketing, but from the world of product by the founder some 13 years ago. And she's built one of the most successful businesses in Southeast Asia through that unswerving and simple focus. Cheryl, welcome. Congratulations. How does it feel?
Oh, thank you so much. It has been really unreal. I really am a bit shocked, to be honest. So I'm very grateful. And I think it really represents the work that we do at Grab, where marketing is a force of commercial growth, where we unify teams together and we bring out the voice of the customer into the organization. So really, really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Well, it's wonderful, Cheryl. And I think we first had the idea for the Global Marketer of the Year award coming up for 10 years ago, and the first winner was Keith Weed. You join a real storied list of great marketeers. But one thing perhaps we could start with is, can you talk a little bit more about Grab? Because many of our listeners, viewers, won't know much about Grab.
Sure. So we are a Southeast Asian based app, and we have a few core services like ride hailing, which is also known as mobility. So we provide you a car, a taxi, a bike, all kinds of different modes of transport to get around the city. We also do food delivery, very similar to Uber, DoorDash, and many other players. We have a financial services arm. We have three banks in three different countries. We also do e-commerce, primarily in the grocery space, which we call GrabMart. And also at the same time, we have a chain of supermarkets. So yeah, that's kind of what Grab does, and we unify all of these experience in a single app for our consumers. So just with one single app, you can really explore all of Southeast Asia and get around really quickly, eat food really not just in terms of food delivery. We also allow you to book restaurants, get deals when you're dining out. So that's a bit about us. We've been around for about 13 and 14 years. And I've been with the company pretty much from the start. I'm actually marketer number one. So it's been an incredible journey. And we're still very much founder led. The founder of the organization is still around. So yeah, that's a bit about Grab.
That's fantastic. And I know that you were handpicked by the founder, Anthony Tan, to be the first marketer. And as you said earlier, you weren't a marketer at the time. And what he wanted, with some prescience, was somebody who really had savvy about growth and could focus on product and delivery and not be a typical marketer. And I've heard you describe this as crossing swim lanes in the past. Can you tell us what you mean by that, and how you found this journey of becoming one of the world's great global marketers?
Yeah, I think when I talk about crossing swim lanes, it's basically actually a very natural part of being in a small company. So when we started, we all didn't have very specific roles. Many of us were C-level for everything, right? So, I was doing marketing, I was doing sales, doing support, I was doing business development, government affairs, whatever it is, right? So I think, and that is something that and in fact, when we were hiring in the early days, we were focused on hiring more generalists because we didn't have the luxury of being able to hire a specialist team, and we just needed everyone to be able to be a bit of a Swiss Army knife, right? Um, so that's what I mean. I think like being a marketer that is able to to work across many different teams to bring a really good commercial outcome. And if I think about an early example of how all of that played out at Grab, I still remember the first marketing campaign that I ever ran for the organization. Um, it was like 13 years ago. Okay, so it sounds very simple today, but all it was is I did a campaign that was very focused on giving discounted rides, a heavily discounted ride, like 70-80% to the airport. Today, that sounds like something absolutely tactical and meaningless. But back then, because we had no media money, all we had was just a small marketing budget. We wanted something that will create a lot of word of mouth marketing. So we went with a use case that is very crucial. It's a moment of either like joy or pain if you get, like proper transportation to the airport. And so we did that, and it generated a lot of word of mouth. I mean, back then people weren't even booking transportation through an app, right? So I think in that sense there was quite a lot of word of mouth created. So it sounds very tactical, but actually back then, we didn't even have the technology to do promo or discounts. So everything we had to work with the technology team to kind of hack whatever that we couldn't hack with technology. We needed customer support to cover up. Maybe, for example, the driver doesn't know that he's supposed to give a discount. The customer service will call and say, hey, look, this ride, there is a discount. Please apply it. We needed to work with finance to make payout possible to drivers. So yeah, that was kind of it, like, so that's what I mean by crossing across lanes. And at the time it just felt really normal. It's just what we had to do to make the business run. But in hindsight, I think it did validate a bit of Anthony's early thinking, which growth won't come from marketing alone. It will come from us being to step inside different roles, bring it all together, and driving for commercial outcomes.
Yeah. And I know that obviously we would describe that these days as having a very clear customer value proposition. And Anthony talks very eloquently about that as well. And it's to do with the focus on money and using your money wisely and getting the very best possible deal you can. I mean, I think, you describe that campaign as simple. I think it's profound in its simplicity, really customer focused, really hits a pain point, and to drive word of mouth at the speed you did, got the brand up and running fast. I mean, as you've evolved, how have you kept this feeling of a startup culture, which seems to me to drive so much energy and actually so much customer focus at the same time?
I think we're very lucky for many reasons. One is like we are still very much founder led. Anthony is still very much involved in the business, and like I think when we talked about, I actually, when I won, I shared it with him because he's the reason why I ended up doing marketing. So he's still very involved in the organization. We have a very large founding team that is still pretty much still around in Grab after all these years, and we work very hard on the culture. I mean, I think it is one of the things that we spend an immense amount of time thinking about how to shape it. And it's not by accident. So today, the things that used to be very easy in a small organization, crossing lanes, like collaborating because we're all sitting on the same table anyway, it's not so easy with so many employees, right? So I think a lot of the things that we try and instill is not just like talk, we try to build the processes around it. As an example, the way we build products today at Grab is very focused on what we call problem space. And so maybe like, how do I make this ride more affordable for people in a certain country? And for us, we'll get together a few people from different disciplines and we will work together to solve that problem. So that helps, break down the silos, make sure that we have diversity of thought. And that's something that I really value and love about working in the organization.
I think I've heard you talk about a few regrets you have. And one of them in that context is the interesting one of this confusion of consensus with clarity in decision making, and consensus not necessarily always driving the best customer outcome. Can you hate this word, unpack that for us a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it doesn't mean just because everybody thinks the same way that that should be the outcome. And and I think sometimes the worst decisions are made in like a bit of a herd mentality, right? And without getting into the specifics of it, I think generally my biggest regrets in these areas where I felt that I should have been a lot more vocal, I should have not maybe been so consensus driven, have generally been in two areas. One, in the area of people. Like people really make or break the organization, right? And so when we make like you might, like when we hire, when we back, when we promote people who might be great performers but not so great on the culture side, I think those are not the best decisions, although it's maybe a bit harder to make. I think the second pattern that I've seen where this kind of like where decisions aren't as great for me sometimes is around policies and processes, right? So I think what I mean is, like, in a fast moving company like Grab, sometimes we also try to make decisions really quickly in consensus, but when we roll it out, because we did not think through it, um, without enough consultation, without enough consideration on second order effect, sometimes it just slows us down even more because we got to go and retract that. So I think there are a lot of these instances over the years, but generally I find that they're generally process pricing based or people based, where I think it is very important to not enter the room with a mind of being, um, like, accommodating. I think it's about trying to think through really what is the impact.
And I know that the way you hire people is an important part of this, and you yourself closely involved in hiring. I think you've helped place a couple of the CEOs in market as well. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think this whole notion, especially as we move into the more AI influenced world, of having the right people working in the right way is going to be more and more crucial to success. So, how do you do recruitment? How do you deal with people who don't fit the culture? Can you help us understand that a bit more, Cheryl?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to hiring, few things that I think is really important. One is obviously the core skill set to do the job, the potential to change in a world that is constantly changing, and that is super important for us. And then lastly, the right culture that fits the organization, right? And this sounds like really basic, but when it comes to, for example, culture at Grab, we are performance managed against culture very strongly. And I think we have a quite a good sense of what we are looking for, and I mean it's codified in the way that we hire. And especially for marketing, generally I always say the best kind of marketers have a couple of traits. One is they're extremely commercially driven. They understand what makes the business work, all the levers that matter, and how marketing can drive impact to the business, right? Second is they must be extremely data and insights driven. You need marketing, you need that to be a good marketer. Need to have insights and data patted down so that you can have the conversation toe to toe with any other stakeholder, um, and sort of like, and be able to get your main point across, right? And then lastly is really just the humility and curiosity to learn. We live in a world with so much changes, um, and so you need to be curious, right? What's happening in the world, and I want to learn. And so I think because we do like hiring people that fit that kind of criteria, which I think many people have been able to transition into other roles if that is of their choosing, because these are foundations for many kinds of roles, P&L roles, product roles. And so I've been very lucky to have a very amazing team that have grown with me, and have helped me grow, and they have also then taken on many interesting roles in the organization that I'm super proud of.
That's fantastic. And I know as you have been a long time in this company, you've expanded your role, which these days also includes sustainability. Sadly, a word that has disappeared from many marketing lexicons. I don't think it should. But can you talk a little bit about how you work, how the work on sustainability has influenced the day job, as it were, what you do with product, what you do with driver well-being, those kind of things?
Yeah, so I would say sustainability has taught me two things. I think number one is just how to think about long term and how to drive towards longer term goals. If you think about, our decarbonization goals, they are much further and out in the future than maybe our current even business planning, right? So I think it's helped me understand how to plan for something a lot more longer term. And then secondly, to consider the various um, points of views and considerations of stakeholders, whether that's people, planet, and different groups of stakeholders, right? So I think that's what really sustainability has taught me. And when we think about how to bring that into product, how to bring that into life, I think the gold class of sustainability, it must deliver business impact to some degree as well, right? To me, that makes sustainability to some degree a no-brainer. So as an example, people ask me, we're very big on inclusivity. That means, like, making sure that our app is inclusive, but also allowing people um, with disabilities to also drive, depending on like regulation and things like that. And people ask me why does that matter? And I think it matters because if you look around the world today, there is a shortage of drivers in some countries, and being able to access a much wider population of people allows us to provide a better service. Data also shows, for whatever reason, that people with disabilities are our best kind of drivers because they are the safest, maybe because they are far more conscious, and secondly, they drive they are the most, they retain very well, they drive the longest hours, they stay with us for the longest time, and that's because I think we are an opportunity for them, and they really like it. um so yeah, I think that's the gold class for me when it comes to sustainability. It delivers both the the feel good, but more importantly, they also drive business impact, and it's good for society.
Yeah, and I also like the dictionary definition of sustainable before we changed it into this was repeatable, the things that you can do and repeat and get success from. So I think, the business outcomes really show the success of that. And you talk very eloquently about, as we shift into the AI driven world, spotting the patterns, not just in consumer and human behavior, but in algorithm shifts. So we're in a world, I grew up in a world of hearts and minds. We're now in the world of hearts and machines. Don't think that means the minds are gone, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the most urgent reason, I think, for us to really look outside what is maybe more traditional, is because today growth is no longer driven I mean, on the marketing side, primarily by creative or media choices, right? A lot of growth is driven also by product, by algorithms, and by the everyday touch points that people have with the brand. It's no longer like, you watch a TV ad. It's so much more than that today. um and especially at Grab, a lot of the most marketing decisions are happening today live. It's happening live, deep in our product, data, and operations. Things like what gets ranked on top of the app that the consumer sees. How do we determine pricing? How do we determine matching? So a lot of these touch points today live within the app, and these decisions shape consumer preference, consumer trust, way more than any marketing campaign that I can ever do, right? Which is why recently, um, when we ironed out our brand architecture, one of the big things that we worked on with our economics team was on pricing and fair pricing principles. Because eventually, AI will determine a lot of these things, and whatever that we don't say explicitly and don't determine explicitly might end up being assumed, and we might have like really at scale problems. So I think that's why more than ever, marketing really needs to move upstream. We really need to be involved in technology, and we need to understand how technology is shaping the way our product works and how that changes consumer perception and trust.
That's fantastic. And many would say that that's possibly easier when you have a startup culture and you've been in a company all the way than it is in a big corporate. But I know you're a non-exec director as well, and you're a non-exec director of what we would consider a big corporate. So can you talk a little bit about what you see there and how you help in your role as a non-exec bring that startup culture and customer focus?
So I think like there are many things in this organization that I think helps us keep that. One of the big ones that we do is immersion, which means that we will, I mean, and it's automatic, it's now system generated. We look at people who haven't done it, we put them into a queue, we select dates for them, and they need to do something called immersion. And immersion is just spend a day in the shoes of the people that you serve. So I will have to partner a driver. I have to pretend to be like a driver's, read the app, try to pick up someone, experience what it's like. And that really brings the consumer mindset into everyone in the organization, and this will apply to not just marketing but all the different teams, right? So we have a very I guess regimented way in which we make consumer centricity happen. I think I talk a bit about how teams are structured around problem spaces. All of that really help us to remain, I guess, to some degree, very nimble and very collaborative. And if I think about, like larger organizations, for example, if I were to step into a different organization from Grab. I think if I had to do it all over again, um, few things, right? I think number one, it it's always good to start with a problem that people like the C level cares deeply about, whether that's user churn, life cycle, whatever it is. And then I think for marketing to bring in insights, but also orchestrate many other different teams to work together to deliver outcomes. Because the truth of the matter is, I think the biggest needle moving things a company can do cannot most of it can't be done by just one team. So I think marketers play that important role of bringing insight, orchestrating, bringing the charisma, bringing consumer voice, and just driving that. So I guess if I had to maybe do that again, I would still kind of do it the same way. And hopefully like I said at the start, I've only been the marketer of one organization. um but yeah, that's how I approach it.
That's fantastic. And obviously, we have the joy of you serving on the WFA board as well. You've been nominated 3 times. You've seen many companies in action. Um, and what are the lessons that you've learned that you think can be applied to anybody, anywhere, and help build brands better, to help better customer delivery for people, planet, and profit as well?
I always believe number one, I think you must. y- I think our role is to integrate many different parts of the business together. I think that is the true role of marketing, because today with technology, with product, I think more than ever that is an extremely important role. I think secondly is to bring the voice of the consumer from outside inside the organization. I've also taken over customer support as of recently. So I manage all our call centers and all of that today, and that is like where really you hear what your consumers are saying in the worst of times, and there is so much that you can bring from that. um and lastly, I think it's really about team. I would not be at like because truly I was not a very experienced marketer. I would not be where I am today if I did not have an amazing team. And when it comes to hiring, I would say this: always aim to hire like someone better than you, because A players will hire A players, B players will hire C players. So I always believe the best of us will hire people way better than us, because we are non-threatened, because we can learn and we can grow.
That is fantastic. And Cheryl, can I just end by saying, no wonder you're the Global Marketer of the Year. I think a fantastic role model for all marketers around the world. I love your mix of curiosity, humility, and outright enthusiasm. I mean, I can feel it coming down the camera. You thoroughly enjoy doing what you do, and you can see that in the delivery for Grab customers. So, Cheryl, again, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
And
much.
I'm sure we will be celebrating in person in Stockholm um, this very well merited award. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl, for this masterclass. Thanks for those wonderful insights. And I think it's a demonstration of what makes the WFA very special. The insights that CMOs are prepared to share with each other and with all of us enable us all to be better marketeers, pragmatic, thoughtful, but above all, impactful and driving real growth. So, in a challenging year for all of us, a great example being set by a wonderful marketeer, and I'm looking forward to interviewing many more. And please subscribe. Look forward to seeing you all again soon in the next episode. Take care.